Okay, we are now recording. I am Theo Black,
I'm Sarah Black.
and we talk about movies. That's what this is. That's what we're doing here. Welcome
Yeah.
to this podcast or YouTube video or whatever.
Not popular movies, not movies you want to see, just kind of movies.
No. And not even really new movies in general,
Yeah.
though today we are actually covering a new movie, sort of.
It's a little hard right now to really cover.
My podcast people have been covering the new movies, and it's really a mixed bag of the studio's dumping this because now they don't think they can show it.
Yeah.
Although now we've reached the point, and some of the indies that got released I want to see, like Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, was like $20, and I'm like, I don't want to wait for that to go on rental. And some other stuff have been released that I want to watch. But
there's Palm Springs. Anyway.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I haven't watched it yet.
I'm curious about that one. But shall we go into our first movie, which is actually
somewhat of a new movie. Okay, so we watched First Cow, and I have a few things I want to get just done. One.
Oh, spoilers! We spoil.
Oh, so many. This is going to be crazy spoiled. So like right away. So
yes.
When you don't look at, like, I make a habit of not really looking up movies and stuff like that so that I can enjoy it the most possible enjoyment possible. So I thought it was like a Turkish crime movie or something. I have no idea what I thought it was. So not that. Plus, didn't you send me something you sent me something showing that the subtitles were messed up?
Yes.
And I thought it was like subtitled to English. Not that you were watching just English subtitle because that makes it easier to catch things. So
yeah,
I spent a lot of the movie waiting for the native or Chinese or something to get spoken to see those screwed up subtitles, but that didn't happen.
Well, the indigenous there's one indigenous conversation that happens, I think.
I think
towards the later part of the film.
So I was confused. And so we'll get into more of what the actual genre is, because that's actually the bulk of what I want to talk to you about. But I have been in the mood for lighter, fluffier, happier stuff. And someone sold me that this movie was heartwarming. And to me, heartwarming means what's it called? The Lifetime channel, or
Hallmark movies or something.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily like those, and there is heartwarming in that I like, but families love each other again, people reunite, our faith in, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And instead, this is the story of two men who become good friends dying together, which to me is well, by that standard, Romeo and Juliet is the most heartwarming of all the great stories.
This is reminding me of when you sold Secretary to
and
me.
That's what I was going to get to, is I understand why you think this is heartwarming. And I will concede that it is mildly heartwarming, only if you concede that Secretary is a rom-com, because for one thing it is, and for the other,
I haven't seen Secretary in so long, and it holds such a weird place in my memory.
It is more of a rom-com than First Cow is heartwarming, but I'll let you have that, but you have to give me that in return.
In return for admitting that First Cow is partially heartwarming, I will admit that Secretary is partially rom-com.
Okay.
I haven't seen it in forever. It's other things besides rom-com, but you sold it to me, bro. You sold Secretary to me as a lighthearted fun.
No, I didn't go that deep. It was a while ago. You don't remember. Anyway, so it was very sad, and I was not really in the mood for very sad. And the other thing with what I really want to talk to you about, because I don't think there's too much more to go into about the heartwarming tale of people dying together in the forest.
I have a response to that, but let's go on with your next point.
Is that you have such a thing for low budget Westerns that I am really only understanding now, because I liked First Cow. It was fine. It was better than fine. But between this and the Sisters Brothers and Damsel, I am this is Theo's thing. And it's it actually makes me slightly less proud at having shown you No Name on the Bullet and you liking it. Because now I thought that was a hard sell. Like, this is, this is
It wasn't
not,
as hard a sell as you thought it was.
but it turns out it's just, you just like that kind of stuff. And I'm actually the harder sell with Westerns because I like Westerns when they are actually something that's not really a Western, so.
Well, yeah, so, okay. I've got things to say here.
Okay,
Nothing major, but...
I get why it's heartwarming, but you do your spiel.
Well, so before that part, what's funny to me is that you like Western, a movie named... The title of the movie is Western. It's set in modern day. It's these German workers who go to Bulgaria. Bulgaria?
Yeah.
It's Bulgaria. And it's kind of a Western, even though it's not exactly
subversive, though.
It's subversive, and you like it more than me. Although I've actually I've thought about it so much off and on that I think I've grown to like it more. I still think the ending doesn't work for me, but, and I did like that movie, and it is a low-budget Western. I hadn't thought about how I like low-budget Westerns until you pointed all these things out, and you're right, I do like low-budget Westerns. It didn't... Well, First Cow has also gotten a lot of... I'm never alone, but there's a bunch of the critics that I listen to have all given it high ratings. Like, it's one of the favorites of the year so far.
Yeah, and I don't think it's not good, but your enthusiasm for every one of the movies I just mentioned
is
again,
more
damsel, sister, brother. Like, I always want more, especially, I might have liked First Cow more than those other two, but in general with these, I kind of want more than they give me, but I don't know if we want to go into that yet or let you keep going with what you were going to say.
So the heartwarming part, it's interesting because when I watched it, I didn't think like, oh, these two men who died are those skeletons. Mm-hmm. Like, the idea is that they could be, obviously, that's the setup. But the point is like, well, we don't know. It's the wilderness, two other people could have died there. And as you pointed out later, if it had been them, those bodies would have been dragged around and eaten by animals, so it wouldn't have been them.
Yeah, that's not. So to missing bodies would be so easy to find.
To me, it's heartwarming because it's sort of there's a kind of potential there for, like, to me, it's heartwarming because you don't get to see these quiet, soft male relationships ever. So I may have confused. Because I get your point, and I think it's not as heartwarming as I originally thought it was, because like you don't get to see soft male friendship that often. That's so tender in movies. I mean, it's not that it doesn't exist; it's just rare.
Right.
And like, there's so much. I had so much joy in just watching these men and watching, this man talk to a cow really sweetly, and this other man who's his friend. They're just kind of soft guys, and I just like that, and it feels so tender that it feels heartwarming because of the friendship they form.
Totally, I get it, and I mean, the whole point is that cow was actually part of a pair, and the male cow died. I don't understand how the female cow was giving milk, because I thought they had to be pregnant. Was she pregnant the whole time? I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know how that works. I don't know these things.
Yeah, maybe they said something. And, so there is definitely this theme of, having someone and not having someone. And that's very sweet. And I really like that, too. I just wanted it to be deeper because it was it had almost like a John Carpenter, like, it makes me think, like, John Carpenter is my favorite of the, like, simple premise storytellers. Like, his premises are always like gang members are attacking a precinct, someone's killing babysitters, people are trapped in the Antarctic with a mysterious alien thing eating them, like they're very, but he usually does a lot with it, and for this, I don't know how much more I wanted of things happening, but I wanted more conversations with them and deeper. And instead you just get a lot of these quiet moments of them together. And I liked that, but it wasn't enough. For one thing, I got confused. And when he put on those shoes, when our white guy, I can't remember their names, puts on those shoes, I really got confused and thought he'd like killed the people he was with. Like, I had no idea what had happened. Like, I rewound. I had no idea what had happened there. But he just got paid. Like, that's all. But and then he was these shoes. So I was totally lost so I thought he had this whole sinister background that was going to come out for like half the film until I realized, no, he just got, like, I looked up on Wikipedia. I was just confused about it. But that's the kind of thing, like, I wanted, if it was going to be about the two of them, and then I was waiting for them to, like, there to be a hint that they were gay or something, like, but I like those quiet moments, and men don't talk, and I get all that, but I just wanted more for that runtime. But I still liked it, and I like the stuff you're talking about. Like, I didn't have a problem with that.
So the guy with the shoes is Cookie, is the character, and John Magaro is the actor who didn't look at all like the character to me. I've seen John Magaro in a few other things, including he was in Marshall. He plays what's the singer who is the Jewish lawyer in that, the theater actor, what's his name?
Josh Gad?
Josh Gad. He plays Josh Gad's brother in Marshall. Okay. Anyways, but he plays Cookie, and then King Lou is the other character played by Orion Lee, who I don't know from anything, I think. And I guess for me, there's a part of it is also like them feeling each other out. So it's about, like, because in that area, the way the movie portrays it, like, it's all kind of harsh. There isn't a lot of, like, soft, there isn't touchy-feely. There's, I like the moment where, at the beginning, where a man goes to the bar to get a drink, and people are giving him shit for some reason, and he's got a baby with him, and he just wants a beer. And so then he goes and beats them up, and, like, Cookie's watching the baby, and, like, Cookie doesn't want to leave the baby alone, even though King Lou's like, it's fine, it's going to stay in that basket. And, like, I like that there's interesting character beats like that for, both the man who just wants the beer, but also for Cookie and King Lou. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of liked how, like, there's these little character moments that get sprinkled in to sort of fill out who the characters are, and how Cookie talks to the cow, and how King Lou is kind of this entrepreneur type, and how it's gotten him into trouble. That's how we meet him naked and running through the woods or whatever. And I kind of like all those little character moments. And on top of that, I was kind of focused in on there's a capitalist sort of consumerist thread that's running through it about like our products and, like, how we're making, like, the immigrant dream, or the dream of making it. Right. And there's a kind of critique of that. Honestly, it felt very anti-capitalist. It felt anti-capitalist. It felt very like, this system doesn't work, is kind of almost what the movie was saying. Or at least it's, like, really hard for people to succeed in it. And so it's interesting. I don't know Kelly Reichardt's work. She's the director. There's a certain amount of it on Criterion that I want to catch a few before they leave. But it's interesting. I found that interesting. So I was kind of focusing on those two threads, which is, the men feeling each other out and kind of like what their relationship is. And then also the sort of capitalist overtones of, like, them, stealing the milk to make the dough things from Toby Jones, who's the rich guy. And, and also there is some indigenous population there, and they're not really factored into the movie that much, but it doesn't feel like they're forgotten. It's more like they have a place in the society too. It's not great, but here it is. So I kind of liked all these little moments.
No, and I agree. And the baking stuff was kind of my second favorite. Just the way, like, we're used to Westerns being about guys with guns. So the fact that, like, just something sweet to eat is so important, I thought was really interesting. I agree with that. It's just a matter of wanting more. But that's what I tend to feel, with the exception of, like, No Name on the Bullet, which I think is, like, low budget Western Seventh Seal, or I recently watched High Plains Drifter, which I liked as soon as I realized it had a lot of Italian giallo aspects. See, I like it when it's not actually a Western. But, like, my feelings about Damsel and Sister Brothers both were also kind of like, that's it, which is similar to First Cow. And it sounds harsh that way, but, like, I got to the end of First Cow and I realized what it had all been about. And we haven't really summarized it very well here, but, it's just these two men who bond. They steal milk from a cow. It's the only cow in the area. Yeah. And they use that to bake goods and sell those and do really well. But, of course, eventually things go wrong. And that's it. as far as the plot goes.
It's a movie that has a plot, but it's an indie low budget plot.
And I don't mind low plot, but again, there's just too many moments that were too open to too many interpretations. I didn't feel, but same thing with Sister Brothers. Kind of once I realized what it was, I was like, oh, that's it. And Damsel, Damsel's a little bit of an odd duck, but also with Damsel, it's like, oh, that's it. And none of them are bad. They're all good, but just they seem to get you somewhere where they don't get me. And the other thing is, I think you like high budget Westerns more than me as well, because
I just like Westerns more than you.
Kurosawa's basically like a Western guy, even though he's not really. And
I mean, you can classify all his feudal Japan movies as, sort of a Western thing.
Watch more Westerns, and I'm more interested in Westerns than gangster movies, for example. But I just like I said, I kind of like them when they're not really Westerns. So I haven't seen some of the big ones. I haven't seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I haven't seen.
You are not going to like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but you should see it anyways.
I know. I need to see some of those. So I haven't seen. I've used to watch the TV show The Magnificent Seven, but I've never actually seen the
Magnificent Seven's a fun one. That's like that's a really fun like action-y Western.
Right. So I guess I'm kind of, I have two questions for you based on that. Is it all just the same to you, the low budget to the high budget? Like if you see any distinctions, and what is it? Because I do like horror. I am kind of seeing, I like horror that's low budget. I like low budget stuff in general, but it may just be that I don't like Westerns. But I'm kind of curious if you see any.
Well, so
now let me let you talk.
For Damsel, actually, I like you. I actually feel like there wasn't quite enough there in Damsel, though of course I liked it. And Sisters Brothers is again kind of about, I don't know why, but I think that one's also kind of about capitalism and entrepreneurship. I think the West is a really easy place to sort of set that kind of theme. Mm-hmm. So now it makes sense actually that I've seen two low budget Westerns about that. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I have kind of the same feeling about Westerns that I do about superhero movies, which is that there's a lot of Westerns out there, and I have seen a small portion of them because at one point in time, Westerns were made with the kind of frequency that superhero movies are made nowadays. It's not quite the same. I've seen various people talk about it on the internet. Go talk to them or listen to their shit. I don't care. Yeah. But big budget Westerns, like if you get the good ones, like The Searchers or something, like, and these movies are especially problematic if we want to talk about when they're
Do not care for The Searchers that much, but yes.
These movies are problematic, and their story and their meanings and their message has aged in interesting or not interesting ways. It's like a good one of those is like a good superhero movie. It's got a budget. You're going long. They've got big vistas. You're going long distances. They're pretty. It's about exploring the will. It's about man versus man and this kind of primal sort of thing. And I don't tend to go for those plots, but something about it being set in a situation where that makes sense. Like I see you sometimes we watch movies where it's man versus man and it's like set in the corporate world, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's funny because to me that's what Westerns are. It's just which man is gonna man the most. Not all of it. I mean, I'm grossly simplifying, but
so am I. It works a little more for me in Westerns. Those are not my favorite Westerns. My favorite mm-hmm. Westerns are things like, I don't know, Unforgiven's really good. I guess I like Unforgiven. But that's more about like how all of it is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like about how the machismo is kind of bullshit at a certain point. So it's like, and the low budget Westerns to me are very often, they don't care about that. Like big budget Westerns, superhero movies are always about like being yourself and like, being
working together as a team, becoming a family.
They're always about that, right? And so big budget Westerns are often, they're all about like man versus man and, who's the stronger masculine force. And low budget Westerns are, No Name on the Bullet is some sort of vague Seven Seal kind of crowd, how does the crowd work kind of movie. And First Cow is, capitalism and soft male friendship. And so it's like, I like low budget more because they tend to explore different things.
Mm-hmm.
It's really true for superhero movies too. Not that I watch them, and there's not that many low budget superhero movies, but like Fast Color is not a great movie, but it's kind of a superhero movie. It's
Mm-hmm.
really a supernatural movie, but like I kind of like that more than I like most of the big budget stuff, even if it's not, an amazing movie.
Mm-hmm.
Or what's that one, the not bad M. Night Shyamalan movie?
Unbroken or
Unbroken, yeah.
Unbreakable.
Unbreakable, yeah, I don't know. Whichever one it is. Like, I like that more than I like most of them, And then I like the Guardians movies because those kind of subvert and are subvert the tropes so much. So it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely like, I get, like, you like low budget horror because they're doing a lot with a little. I kind of like Westerns for that same thing. But I think low budget horror tends to deal with broader themes than like the high budget stuff. There's not really that many high budget horrors, but like the more mainstream horrors, which are like
Yes.
jump scare,
monsters, things with long fingers,
it's
things
about
like
it's about overcoming your fears and being more confident as a person. Whereas low budget horror is like about brothers and about being friends and stuff, and not. It's low budget horror is often not like a positive message necessarily. So it's not. So what it is I like Westerns, I think, in the way that you like horrors, but the tropes and the themes are different. And I don't mind, in superhero movies that it's man versus man. I mean, it's person versus person. I keep saying man versus man, but it's just person versus person, because that's kind of like it's simplicity. Like, I don't mind simple messaging. I don't mind simple movies the way I think you do. And
like simple,
big budget or mainstream Westerns are also usually simple in that way, and they aren't really exploring it a lot. But sometimes the theme doesn't necessarily need to be fully explored. I sometimes just like a definitive statement, even if it's lacking nuance.
Yeah, I don't mind simple movies or low budget movies. There's just, it may just be a factor of the Western things. I get what you're saying. It's like they low budget Westerns tend to explore different themes. They tend to be a little more slice of life. It tends to be smaller.
Yeah.
In
scope,
or just, like even the people, like this isn't the biggest, baddest gunfighter. This is just some guy and his brother kind of a story.
Yeah.
So I get that. I totally get that. I think it may just be, again, I don't like the West. I just don't like it that much.
I wonder,
which is funny. I really was into Doc Holliday and Tombstone as a kid, but that always cracked me up, because when you actually read about the gunfight at the OK Corral, there was like years of court battle. Like, it's actually the story of the Earps and Doc Holliday versus the Clantons and the McLaurys is actually a courtroom drama that would go on for like 10 hours, and then there would be like a 10-minute gunfight at the end, because it was just people suing each other and just forever. So I always like that aspect of it too.
Yeah, I think
someone needs to do that. Have you seen a lot of John Ford? Have you seen a lot of Sergio Leone?
I've seen a bunch of. Sergio Leone didn't make that many movies, I don't think, and I've seen several of them. I haven't seen.
He was the name I could come up with off the top of my head.
I haven't seen a ton of what's his name? He's a masculine director. He made like Pat Garrett and Billy whatever and.
Sam Peckinpah.
Sam Peckinpah. I've seen a few of his. I've seen some Ford, but Ford made a ton of movies, and I just haven't seen a lot of them. And Peckinpah, it's just one that I've missed. His movies are like the kind of like overly masculine stuff where I'm like, I saw one of his movies and it's fine. It was good. I don't know. I personally like exploring them more. And there's a Western noir category on Criterion that I need to go through. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, so. I'd be curious to hear more feedback. And because again, I just recently watched High Plains Drifter, and for half the movie, I was just like, I wish this were No Name on the Bullet, which isn't a fair assessment of a movie, but it's also hard not to do it when you're feeling that way. And then, like I said, the last third got me, because it was just like, but that's because it reminded me of Giallo horror, and it had that eerie music and so on. Anyway, I am curious if you'll find. I mean, I need to watch the classics just so I know what I'm pooing on sometimes. But I would be curious to find more like that, where it's not. It's not like John Wayne. I have trouble. I have trouble with John Wayne just enjoying watching his movies, and then the fact that he seems politically so not a great guy makes it convenient.
The thing with Westerns is like they tend to be very conservative in terms of their sort of who was making them and their worldview. Like, I mean, Clint Eastwood is pretty conservative, and so was
for Hollywood, yeah.
For Hollywood, and so was you just said his name, and
John Wayne.
And that's not, I know, I'm using broad terms here because there's a lot of nuance, but so I always have an interesting tackling with it personally because I'm like, well, I don't really agree with a lot of this shit that's in these, but they're interesting in the way they're exploring.
Right, and I read in like H.P. Lovecraft stuff, so my bigger problem with John Wayne is I just don't like his stuff very much. Like, I just don't. And it's so white, and it wasn't actually so white at the time.
Oh, no,
I think they're trying to do. I mean, First Cow, like you said, showed some different.
Well, and there's all this stuff about cowboys, and there's like, I can't name a movie that has a black cowboy as a lead, but like there was apparently a ton of black cowboys and even the indigenous culture and all that.
Right, but even like race was different then too, and you had so many Irish people out there, but the Irish weren't beloved. Like the Irish have a different persona, the Irish culture now than it did at the time. Like they weren't, Italians weren't treated well.
I think
it doesn't even acknowledge that kind of stuff. And then of course there were so many, Chinese immigrants and the way they got treated. I've been wanting to kind of rewatch. It's come up from time to time in social media stuff. 1,000 Pieces of Gold, 10,000 Pieces of Gold.
Oh, you've seen that?
Yeah,
I've been wanting to watch that.
We could both watch that. I've seen it, but it's been a long time and I don't remember it very well. It has Chris Cooper and I'm going to get her name wrong. So let me get it right. I had it right. It's Rosalind Chow. Chris Cooper and Rosalind Chow in it. And because that's one of the few movies that I remember that it really, and there are others, but it's what's gotten attention over the years and so on. Anyway.
Yeah. I have a final question for you. That was half the question, was like the fact that it kind of, all these movies just erase a ton of history, which I also find interesting. It's bad, but I find it interesting. And then there's also just the female presence in these movies. Unless it's like Cat Ballou or something, there just is usually not a ton of female presence or femininity in these movies. Is that something that gets you?
I think so. I'm not like, I think the Bechdel test is extremely useful, but I'm not like, just for kind of measuring stuff, but like, if I like a movie and it doesn't pass, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I like LA Confidential, but I do tend to.
The female presence in Westerns, if we're talking about the male, it's all about masculine and stuff. The female stuff is usually even more overlooked.
That's what's always confused me about horror, is that it's treated like such a men's realm, but so many famous horror films star women. And I don't think that's necessarily makes it progressive. I think part of that has to do with just how vulnerable women are and the feminine is and so on. But at the same time, at least there are women in it.
Yeah.
And they're not just wives and, good girls waiting at home for the men to come back.
There's too much to talk about there, but yes.
Yeah, there's not a lot for me to personally sink into when the women are generally just waiting for the men to come home. Yeah.
Anyways, First Cow.
I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it a lot.
I liked it. I liked it a lot too. I might have loved it. I don't know. It's definitely a really good movie.